A rough season in coaching speculation doesn't seem to be hurting Jim Harbaugh in Michigan on the recruiting trail. We bring in Clayton Sayfie from the Wolverine Mag on Rivals to help us break down a very eventful National Signing Day for Jim Harbaugh and his staff. Clayton.
Yeah, I was actually about to open with that word, eventful, lots of action, kind of things coming in. And we were running a live blog over on our site, thewolverine.com. And it just felt like things were coming in, especially in the first half of the day, by the minute. So it was some good discussion with some people over there. But all in all, I think a pretty good day for Michigan. They had a couple guys flip that certainly weren't unexpected, but those always hurt. And then they added a couple guys that we'd felt good about with the days coming in. But you look back a couple weeks and there was a lot of, uncertainty, I guess, surrounding those guys and surrounding how Michigan would finish, considering the things you mentioned, Jim Harbaugh's contract still being, something that's discussed nationally. And hey, so, I mean, they hung on and signed the number 12 class in the country here.
Yeah, concerning negative speculation, and I'm sure how that's used by rival teams and coaches. Not a bad day at all. I would agree with you that there were more positives in the closing run than negatives. So break it down for us in regards to the guys that came down to the wire.
Yeah, so the two big names that came down to the wire, we'll start with Donovan Edwards. He is a Rivals 100 running back, so a top 100 kid, number 74 in the country, the number 3 running back in the entire nation, right out of West Bloomfield in the Detroit area. He decided he was down to basically Georgia, Michigan, and Notre Dame. He had an Alabama hat on the table as well, and seemed to be an Ohio State type lean, several months ago, maybe back in the summer or before the dead period last spring. But basically Ohio State filled up at running back, and he was still wanting to take his time, and they were able to get guys that they could get. So they took him and got a great class. Obviously, Ohio State recruiting really well. But Donovan Edwards, hometown kid, could have gone to the South. Georgia was the main competition. But I was at his signing day ceremony yesterday in the snow, and he chose the Michigan hat as we expected him to. He decided a couple days beforehand and told Jim Harbaugh that he was coming on, and a huge win for Michigan. And all things considered, that they can hang on to a kid with this kind of elite talent. I've seen him 3-4 times now this fall, and he's very, very good. His NFL comparison is probably like an Aaron Jones. He's not a guy that's going to be breaking 70-yard runs here and there, though he has the capability to do it. But he's more of a guy that's going to pick up 7-8 when there's 4 or 5 there. And that's huge, obviously, in college football and translated to the next level at the NFL. But really like this kid. He's an ultra competitor too, and has a great story. He lost his mom early in his life to cancer. Has just been has a great mindset talking to him. So a special moment for him. And that's probably the number one thing I think about signing day is it's about the kids and how exciting it is to see these guys move on to the next level. So a big win for Michigan there. The next guy is one that we've talked about a few times over the last few weeks, and it's really been a huge story surrounding Michigan football. Is they had a kid, Xavier, a top 100 wide receiver. Watch his highlight film because he's incredible in terms of how twitchy and fast he is. He ran a 10.55 100-meter as a sophomore in high school. He said he would have been a 10.3, 10.4 this year. I guess I'll take his word for it. I mean, it's pretty damn fast. But he visits the Iron Bowl. He goes to the Iron Bowl a couple weeks ago. Considers Alabama. And it's like, okay, this kid's gone, right? I mean, it's Alabama. You go to Tuscaloosa on your own dime, right, and sit in the stands because you can't visit right now with all the COVID and the dead period. Well, Michigan's able to hang on. And I think with that one, the relationships really won out because he loves Josh Gaddis, Michigan's offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach, and he kind of likes that the OC will also be his position coach. He likes Jim Harbaugh and the relationship that they built before and during, when he was a commit. He committed back in the summer. And the rest of the staff, and I think relationships won out. He's good friends with Christian Dixon, another Michigan wide receiver commit out of California. So they're making the trek, and Xavier Worthy will be here in a couple weeks as an early enrollee. Same with Donovan Edwards out of West Bloomfield. And overall, those were the two guys basically that were up for grabs that Michigan wanted to hold on to at the end and sign at the end, and they did. And then we can, I guess, get into some of the guys that they didn't, if you want.
Yeah, let's look at some of the losses. Again, I think all things considered, yeah, when you're in the fight for that kind of elite talent in a number of areas, there are going to be some you're going to take some hits, but it's not the damage wasn't too substantial.
Yeah, so the Brandon Jennings, he's a Rivals 100 running back out of Jacksonville. And this is a kid who committed a couple months ago, and it was a big surprise. He was a Florida State commit. He decommitted. It was like, all right, he's probably going to go to Miami. His brother plays there. And he chooses Michigan. And it was kind of like, okay, wow, this happened very quickly. Surprised all of us. And then, we knew Michigan was in contention, but didn't expect him to necessarily pull the trigger right away and actually choose Michigan. Fast forward a couple months, signing day, there's a lot of buzz heading in that he would flip to Maryland, not Miami, which would be the team you would expect with his brother there and the close relationship. And he chooses Maryland. Mike Loxley is obviously a very good recruiter. He's been a plus recruiter everywhere he's been, including Alabama before he took the head coaching job up at Maryland. But kind of surprising. This is a talented kid, obviously being, ranked in the top 100. So a pretty big loss. And I will say this about Michigan's defensive class, not even close to the talent that they signed on offense. We mentioned a few those guys, Donovan Edwards, Xavier Worthy, J.J. McCarthy, one of the top quarterbacks in the country as well, who's a 5-star on some other services and a 4-star for us at Rivals. But the defense, you can't afford to lose playmakers like Brandon Jennings, but you did. You have some other talent there, a couple top guys. Junior Colson's one of them. A linebacker out of the Nashville area, but you got to hang on to as many of these top type guys as you can, especially on defense, where Michigan has just been abysmal this year. And then the next guy, Quentin Somerville, a kid out of Saguaro in Arizona, and that's a powerhouse program out west. And he is a kid that 2 years ago, when they came out with rankings, he was ranked as a 5-star, I believe, and one of the top kids in the country. He never really grew. So, he's a really good pass rusher, but he, doesn't quite have the frame, isn't quite as tall as you would want out of an elite pass rusher. So he's still a 4-star and would have been a good addition for this Michigan defensive class. But there starts to be some buzz the night before signing day, Tuesday night, that he would just stay on the West Coast and go to UCLA. And, kind of from what we heard, Michigan, wanted to keep him, did what they could, but it wasn't anything that they were, I guess, I'd say this. I think they were allocating their time a little bit in some other areas that night when they found out what was going on. So 2, significant losses, more so though the Brandon Jennings one. And then we can talk about too, a couple kids down in Florida that Michigan was able to kind of surprise and get at the end of signing day last night. If you want.
Give it to us, Clayton.
Yep.
Well, we will take all the information we can get from you, especially since, most of these classes, as I talked to 15 people yesterday and many more today, were buttoned up pretty well. So I love the drama and the late decisions here. Yeah.
So I'm kind of taking you through the day because I'm kind of taking you chronologically. So this is 8 p.m. now. We're on 8 p.m. last night. Michigan cornerback commit Jaden McBurrows out of St. Thomas Aquinas, another powerhouse program down in Florida, Fort Lauderdale. He was deciding between Michigan and Miami. He's been committed for a while, but was considering Miami, the hometown team down there. And he was set to sign at 8 o'clock. We had heard that Michigan feels good about this one, coming down to the wire after it looked like it was kind of a toss-up in days prior. And then his teammate, Jaden Hood, a 4-star linebacker, also out of St. Thomas Aquinas, obviously being teammates, was going to wait. He's a Michigan commit. He was going to wait until the late period. Miami's another team that really, really wanted him. And, we figured that he'd probably wait and weigh his options. Well, about an hour or 2 hours before, he decides he's going to sign with Jaden McBurrows. So 2 Jadens deciding at the same time, 8 p.m. last night. They both sign with Michigan. And I'll say those are huge because we talked about the Brandon Jennings flip, a linebacker. Jaden Hood is a really hard-hitting, tough-nosed linebacker, and they're able to hang on to him. But the bigger one's Jaden McBurrows, the corner, who is undersized, but he just has that dog mentality. And, is going to be, I think, a guy that, if Michigan continues to play this kind of man-to-man press defense, he's exactly who you want because he has that mentality. But he's the only corner in this class, and we've talked about, and basically everyone that's watched Michigan football this year has realized how bad the cornerback play is and the secondary play has been. So huge to hang on to him. They thought they could possibly flip Florida State commit Omarion Cooper yesterday. He ended up signing with the Seminoles. So all things considered, to hang on there at the cornerback position, to hang on there late at the linebacker position, 2 big wins. And I think those are really what put it over the top to be definitely a positive day for Michigan. It could have gone either way, depending on some of the decisions we talked about. But to get the 4 guys we talked about that were really on the fence, I think is huge. 4 out of your 5 guys that were on the fence, and then the 1 surprise flip. So you have surprises. You had everything basically yesterday for Michigan.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the maize and blue. We've got Clayton Safey on the line from the Wolverine Mag on Rivals. Check him out and the rest of the staff there covering Michigan athletics. And if you weren't joining them yesterday, you missed all that. So you get a slice here, but you get the deep dive if you check them out on the Wolverine Mag. Definitely. So it's the 12th rated class according to Rivals, number 2 in the Big Ten. Any more work that needs to be done between now and the first Wednesday of February?
Yeah, definitely. And basically this is a Michigan team, if you want to look at it from, what are their needs? Okay, well, defensive line is one. We've talked about corner, basically the entire defense. And they got some good guys. Okay, fine. But the D line, they didn't get a true defensive tackle. So that's going to be a huge emphasis. And it's funny, Michigan's recruiting director, Matt Dudek, who takes a lot of flack on social media from fans, Rivals fans, Michigan fans, all alike. He basically tweeted yesterday, responded to a negative comment and said, hey, we're not done yet. We got more to do at those positions. And somebody was referencing, I think, the defensive backfield and defensive line. So kind of funny to see a guy, he was probably feeling himself a little bit after landing a couple big fish there yesterday and decided to come out and say that. And it's kind of aligned with what we've heard is they're working really hard on those 2 positions that they didn't really do so well at in the early period. So one guy to watch here late is going to be Rayshawn Benny. He is a 4-star defensive tackle out of Detroit area. He's from Oak Park High School here. And he was basically a Michigan lean for a long time and decided to pick Michigan State just after the Michigan State game. Has built a good relationship with Mel Tucker and the Spartan staff. But there's a little bit of buzz there that Michigan's picking up a little steam. And if Jim Harbaugh does sign a contract extension soon, that he would really, really start to consider Michigan. I think the uncertainty got to him a little bit in the fact that Michigan State was like, hey, we're rebuilding, but so are they now. So they were able to make that pitch. So that's a guy to watch out for. And then Xavier Wright is a kid out of Los Angeles. He's actually an actor that was in Space Jam 2 that hasn't come out yet, but he played LeBron James's son in Space Jam 2. A little fun fact about him. So he's a corner out of Los Angeles, a really talented kid who's considering USC, Notre Dame, and Michigan. And our guy, EJ Holland, our recruiting guy, who's just, the best in the business on the trail here up in Ann Arbor. Talked to him last night, and he's set to decide January 2nd, so he'll sign in the late period. And Xavier Wright was very impressed with what Michigan did, and basically saw that, hey, they got some talent, but I would be, maybe the icing on the cake to like you mentioned, a top 12 class could possibly put them over the top to a top 10 class. 2 names to watch, and then they're going to hit the transfer portal, Mark, as much as you can at a Big Ten school where you don't always get the transfers or the credits to transfer in and all that. That I think is more complicated than a lot of people realize. They've had quite a few of those kind of fall through where they have mutual interest with a kid, but it's like, hey, we don't have the grad program you want, or, you don't qualify for, all the credits. You'd have to be basically a sophomore or junior or whatever. So, but they're going to hit the transfer portal. They have to. And I think they're going to do it harder than you've ever seen a Jim Harbaugh team do. He actually mentioned that last night on a podcast that he was appearing on, basically that, hey, we've had some good players that have come from the transfer portal. We don't hit it too much, but we're going to look at it seriously. And that's really the first time you hear a strategy like that out of Jim Harbaugh, who doesn't really reveal much of what's going on behind the scenes. So I think those are three things to look out for: is the Rayshon Benny buzz, Sierra Wright, a kid who's going to consider Michigan down to the end, and then the transfer portal, and we'll see what kind of holes they can fix, because they got a lot to deal with here this offseason.
The way you spin this, and you didn't need to spin it, it was all just information out there. What I'm getting to is the fascination of it. There seems to be a positive vibe there, where you would think, based
Right.
on what we've seen on the field this season, it's been all negative, and the speculation about Harbaugh, you can't beat Ohio State, can't get back on the field with 3 missed games to finish a bad season, and he's still able to get into living rooms, convince high elite
Virtually
talent.
get into living rooms. Yeah.
What's that?
Virtually get into
virtually. Yes. You
That's
always
the weird thing. It's even more amazing almost this year.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
That you're able to, and every program around the country has dealt with it. But I'm just talking about the teams that did well yesterday. I guess somebody had to do well. So I guess, you do the math there. So, some teams had to do well, and some had to take some lumps yesterday. LSU, right, lost a couple huge commits to Alabama. But yeah, it's amazing that they were able to actually hang on without, it's different when you're out there and you're a head coach and you're on the recruiting trail and you're in their home eating dinner with them, and you're like, hey, I'll be here next year. I'll be here, for the next few years. And, you build the trust really in person. To do that over Zoom with all the uncertainty, I think, was probably a bigger challenge for teams like Michigan. We saw it with LSU, like I mentioned, to do, because of, the bad season that they had. And, you add the uncertainty on top of that for Michigan. So impressive altogether. In terms of that, you can't say, I guess, enough of how they, about how they finished. You could argue that, some of the guys that they have aren't necessarily game-breaking players, but that's a completely different discussion, I guess, because those guys have been committed for a while. But in terms of what signing day was overall, I think it was, a good success for Michigan. And, but again, it had to be if they're going to, rebuild this thing after a bad season.
So overall, obviously, yeah, we focused in the last 48 hours, but
right.
Overall, who were the guys that you like, and not necessarily the guys at the top of the board, but guys that intrigue you?
Oh, yeah, we can start with J.J. McCarthy, who played at IMG Academy last year. He transferred because his school in Illinois canceled the season. So he's like, all right, I'll go start for the team that won the high school national championship this past year, and had a good year. I think it was a little bit of an adjustment for him going down in I think he got to campus like a month before the season started, and to play with a whole new team. But he put up some impressive stats and looked good. Playing against some top talent. That team travels to Texas and plays some good talent. They traveled up to Nashville to play, and they'll travel all around the country, and did well. He's going to be a kid that's going to compete for this starting quarterback job right away. Cade McNamara is the guy who looks like the best quarterback on the roster right now. And he played a game and a half, so they're basically on equal footing when it comes to experience. J.J. McCarthy is a higher rated recruit, and he's going to come in and compete, and he's basically he's the top recruit at quarterback that Jim Harbaugh's landed. So we can start with him. That I think he's going to push that quarterback room from day one. We mentioned Donovan Edwards and Xavier Worthy. Michigan hasn't had a trio like that at the skill positions that they've signed in the same class, or and we could fast forward a couple of years and maybe say they hadn't had that talent all together at once in a long time. So that's a coup on the offensive side of the ball. Sticking on the offense with some of the O linemen that they were able to get, 4-star center Raheem Anderson right out of Detroit Cass Tech, who is going to be, he has all the makings to be kind of like a maybe 2-3 year starter captain type guy. Tremendous leader. Was able to meet him a couple times. And the offensive line class as a whole is very good. They also added a grad transfer in Willie Allen out of Louisiana Tech, who is a huge, massive human being. I think 6'7" or 6'8" and 300-something pounds. So, and has some talent and competed down there in the Sun Belt. The talent on offense I could go on and on about. Defensively, Junior Colson is probably the best commit maybe overall in this class. I mentioned him briefly talking about the linebackers, but he's out of Nashville. Can fly around the field, could play really any three of those linebacker positions for Michigan. So I think he's probably the guy that gets forgotten about because he's been so solid for so long, and just loves Michigan, and hasn't been a guy that you've had to worry about that's come down to the wire. But he might end up being the best player in this recruiting class, and our recruiting guy EJ Holland believes he is. So I will take his word for it, as a team reporter here.
Good stuff from Clayton Safey, who has caught us up to date on Michigan's National Signing Day, and the news will continue through the first week of February. So we invite you to head on over to the Wolverine Mag on Rivals to check out Clayton's work and the entire staff there covering Michigan football. Clayton, we appreciate you stopping by. Hope to flag you down here soon to talk about some off-season news and maybe some breakout players for 2021.
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks for having me.